are you a family business or are you a business family? And I always said I'm a family business. It's like when you sell your house and then somebody paints the house a different color, and some people are like, I can't believe they'd paint my house. And you're like, it's not your house. You know, it's somebody else's future. And I realized too, my business is not my business. I was a steward of it. Where a lot of people get into trouble is where they think things aren't going to change. It always changes.
But if you're so fearful of change that you never change, there's a chance the world is passing you up right as we speak. Welcome to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential as a leader. Hey, can I ask you a favor? Can you please hit subscribe or follow on any platform that you're listening or watching this episode? Our goal is to connect with you, to bring additional value to you, to bring additional topics to you, and we can do that more effectively if you hit subscribe or follow. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. I appreciate you all being here and tuning in today. You're going to be in a conversation today with my esteemed guest, Jonathan Theders.
All right.
Principal of One Digital. You've probably seen a previous episode if you followed our journey the last 8 years. Jonathan's been on the podcast before. You certainly have heard me reference Jonathan with various leadership quotes or leadership lessons from JT himself. So thank you for joining me.
We've had a lot of years together, that's for sure.
We've had a lot of years together. Thank God we've had a lot of years together.
Yeah.
So Jonathan and I are very dear friends. I'm a customer of his. He's been a customer of us. We partner with organizations all over. And have for the last 17 years. And so hopefully we're going to bring some important leadership lessons and organizational lessons to bear today on this conversation.
Yeah. Sounds wonderful.
All
Thanks
right,
for having me, Mike. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Well, and congratulations on your awesome continued success. And even recently, acquisitions and the things that you all are doing at One Digital is just absolutely blows me away. So
yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and starting as a family business and growing that for the last 28 years, and now having the opportunity to kind of take it to the next level has been a lot of fun, and very similar to all of our mutual clients that we've dealt with. It's the you got to be looking toward the future, and you got to do what's right for the future, and sometimes those are really tough decisions to make.
Yeah.
But if you have it focused on what's right for the future, it always works out.
So Jonathan, what you just referenced is for 28 years, your family had this organization, and you in the last 2.5 years?
About a year and a half since. So actually the business itself, and I'm family for over 40 years.
Okay.
So my father purchased the agency back in 1978. And then I joined in 1998. So 20 years later, I guess we officially became a family business.
Yeah.
We always consider ourselves that way. And then transitioned. I purchased the last bit of the stock in 2021. And I tell people I loved that for about 4 days. And then it was a pressure that I wasn't really, I thought, what if something happens to me? I'm a risk manager by trade. Mm-hmm. That's where I live my life, and it wasn't great risk management from my end. So keeping the business flowing, we had great people, no doubt, but relationships are what a lot of those are. And when you start thinking of, asset for your family, for your future, if the proverbial or literal bus hit me, it was a lot. And so it wasn't something at 49, now 51, that you think about transitioning your business, but both of my children weren't interested in continuing it on. They've got other life dreams, which is awesome. And I realized rather than force that, I wanted to encourage them to fulfill what their life dreams are. And so I want to be a part of the journey versus waiting until I'm 63 and figure it out. I'd rather jump on the ride and ride it.
Okay. So there's some things here we're going to break down. So one of the things as you were evaluating perpetuating the organization, you had to make decisions. And I know that it didn't happen overnight. These were years of evaluating options and looking with your leadership team. So the other thing that you've done that a lot of our clients navigate through is you had an amazing executive team.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about that. At what point did you decide I'm going to build and invest in a true executive team where it's not just the family as another family business running and making all the decisions?
Well, it was pretty early on, to be honest with you. When I first started taking some leadership role, I wanted to get to know and understand all about the business, so that was important. When I started acquiring shares, when I became an owner, I realized that my talents were outside the walls. It was fostering relationships, building rapport, creative solutions to our clients. Really diving deep, and so that's when made the decision at that time to promote who is Amanda Schultz as our president. Not too many people with 17, 18 employees have a non-family president at that size, but it was important for our growth to centralize that. And then it was just, you saw the elevation and the ability of when you put the right people in the right seat with the right passions, great things can happen. And so Amanda, really took the role and ran with it. She then, in our last year as the family business, the historical business, Risk Source, she was president and CEO, and really helped lead to the next phase of our growth. Joining One Digital was a couple things were realized. One that I think was real important was that the fact that we did have a lot of non-family talent, and I like to think some of it was based on loyalty. I think they love their job too, so some of that. But their talents were far bigger than Risk Source could provide.
Okay.
And so it's you can only do that for so long, and then there's opportunities in life, and they have to fulfill their life goals. And so Amanda obviously moved on with One Digital, so she's a part of that organization, but now she's the national practice leader for all of property casualty insurance for the country.
Wow.
Really a large company that recognizes the talent that's there, and to be able to watch her flourish into that next phase of her career is super exciting, because it's something I myself couldn't bring. That's not where I was going to be taking the business. Now I can be part of that business.
Sure. So in all of that, these decisions and evaluations, like how did you identify, I think this team has even more capacity? I know all of the team members, and I'm sure they just demonstrated it because they were leading so well. But did that filter into your decision-making process as you were evaluating keeping the organization, running it as is, and incrementally growing, or going down this path that built an even national, global footprint and framework? Yeah,
there was definitely a lot of those conversations. I probably did a soul searching for about a year and a half. And it precipitated. My kids are 24 and 22 now. One's in museums, and she's in her graduate school at Loyola in Chicago, and my other daughter's about to graduate in nursing up in out of Virginia and move into D.C. area, Arlington. And it was a real conversation with them. I'd always thought of us as, and our brand was a family business. And so when I realized that wasn't the future, then it was really clear when I even thought, like with all my work at the Gehring Center. I was chair of the board of the Gehring Center. A little strange that you transition your family business when you're the chair of the largest family business center. But one of the things we talked about for many, many years there was, are you a family business or are you a business family? And I always said I'm a family business. And it was the transition that really went clear that I said, no, now we're a business family. It's still the same family business I had. The ownership might be a little bit different, but we still have that sense of community and local and how to build. And that's something I wanted to make sure that I had my hands in, to make sure the culture remained the same.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. So some of the fear that organizations have, and you and I have both worked with them, we both are them. We are family business. Now you're I guess private equity owned.
Yep, private equity backed.
Backed. But the values piece scares people. So I know countless organizations that we've worked with where the family was looking for the right partner. And boy, it's hard to judge because you never know until you actually sign the letters and start working as a team and what can transition and what that looks like. But how did you, I know how important culture is to you and how important the family environment is to you. How did you choose the partner? What did that look like? What went through? What questions did you ask to evaluate, is this the right partner for us to connect with?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the most important part. I mean, if people are looking for a transaction to get out, I think that has different criteria in your mind, when you're not looking at legacy per se in the same way. For me, it was all about culture. And so we did not put ourselves out to market in the traditional way. We didn't seek out a ton of buyers, even though we met a lot of people. It was the connection, the human connection that we had with One Digital, and their real focus on that best work, best life. And what Amanda and I said very early on was we need to go to Atlanta and we need to meet the C-suite and we need to see if these are real, if this is marketing or if this is real people. And we did. We asked a lot of good questions. We hung out not only in the boardroom but also socially because I think you can see two totally different people. And what we were so pleasantly, not I want to say surprised, but we were pleasantly reaffirmed is how remarkable these people are. And I say this because we had during the transition we had a couple people on the team that did not come through, did not come over to the other side. I still believe to this day that it was pretty nearsighted on their part because it was built really for their success, and they probably would have benefited from this change as much as anyone, but they didn't come. And I always say, and I told Amanda, I said at some point the dating love affair where you feel like you're going to hit something hard. There is in every relationship, from friendships to business to marriage, where you hit a rough patch, and how you go through that and how you transition through that and how you respect one another through it, and come out on the other side. That's really how you're going to know this was a good deal or not. This is right or not. And we felt that right at the end. I said, I'm kind of blessed that I got to experience a really tough deal before we signed actually on the paper. And I saw the human aspect of everything, the way that they handle challenges and issues. And they put us first. And they said, take the time, understand, we're here for you. Let's come up with a solution. It wasn't corporate hammer. And so to me, it was like a real affirmation at that moment, like we've got the right partner and I believe in it. But with that said, some of what you had alluded to earlier was it's also a realization it's like when you sell your house and then somebody paints the house a different color. And some people are like, I can't believe they'd paint my house. And you're like, it's not your house. Right. It's somebody else's future. Yeah. And I realized too, my business is not my business. Like I was a steward of it, and I feel like I did a great job. And now it's owned by somebody else, but it's their business. Yeah. And so, to me, I feel like where a lot of people get into trouble is where they think things aren't going to change, and it always changes. As a matter of fact, if you even take back the emotional part of the new owner and change, you realize we changed all the time anyway. The ownership didn't change, right. But when I think of how many iterations of Clark Theders Insurance Agency and Risk Source Clark Theders we had over the course of my 28-year career, it was a lot. Yeah. I mean, think of Centennial. Yeah. The ownership hasn't changed. It transitioned. Sure. Building Talent Magnet Institute. Think of all the things that you have done. Yeah. It's changed. Yeah. And there's been good things and there's been hard things and there's been easy things and there's been hard things. And I feel like that's where sometimes when you have that official transition, you sold ownership, it just feels different, but it's actually not really that different.
Yeah. What a lesson learned.
Yeah.
And a lesson to challenge our audience and the family businesses and private companies we work with of if you're so fearful of change, there could be a reflection back into the mirror of are we changing enough to keep up with the times and keep up with customer requirements? I mean, that's really what birthed TMI. Yeah. We were in a midst of a strategic planning process. We had hired an outside advisor to do a voice of the customer survey. And she came back and said, do you all know how much 3 of your top 7 clients just wish you would launch this other thing.
Yeah.
And here's what it is. And in our strategic plan, we used to talk about doing things that added value beyond the core service we provide.
Absolutely.
Which was the search business. So we were already doing this, but she came back. We had one particular client who was growing an HVAC distributor, and they shared, like, we keep asking them to help us in these areas. They keep referring us to others, but the reason why we're asking them is to create continuity, because they're the ones building the team and adding the people. We'd like for them to invest in the people. So our board, Tony Schweier, David Kynell, Doug Bolton, Karen Crone, Dr. Janet Reed, were like, knock, knock.
Hello.
Like, your clients are telling you what you need. But that change has been dramatic. I mean, still to this day, questions get brought up. Are you still doing Centennial? Yep. Centennial is still as strong as ever and as steady as we've been. Now, we've had to adjust our team because just in the last 2.5 weeks, we've had 7 organizations say, we need your help with 2026 leadership development for these sectors of our organization. So the skills change, the needs of who's on your team changes, the resources you have, the way you think about your business, the way you even forecast your business and financially plan for your business. But if you're so fearful of change that you never change, there's a chance the world is passing you up right as we speak.
Are you looking for a place that you can create the content that helps market your brand? Or are you somebody who just needs a space that they can record a podcast, record talking head social content? You want to create a webinar, a course, or other content like that? Take a look at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio. We're a space built just for creators like you. Our studio here in downtown Cincinnati, located right next to all the hot restaurants in OTR, is set and ready for you. We can have up to 4 people in our studio. You can record long form, short form content. It looks awesome. The lights change colors. I mean, even there, hi, in the background. What's up there, guys? We have all the technical amenities to try and help you succeed at creating high quality content. We work on everything from subscriptions to create your own show. We do day rentals so you can create massive volumes of content and we'll just hand you all the footage. And we can even do things like limited time series where you can come in, record a bunch of episodes at one go, and then have that ready for a show to market your brand or your business. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a brand, or an author who's looking to market themselves with high quality video content, check out our website at CincinnatiPodcastStudio.com and schedule a tour today.
Your iterations, I was just thinking when you were sharing the age of your girls, like, we've known each other since I had no kids and your kids were like
babies,
1 and 3. And so we've worked together and we've seen each other in all of the capacities. And I can think of, when you all went heavy into the purple cow culture work, right?
Absolutely.
That still permeates in your brand to this day.
Still got a little purple jacket on.
And then the rebrandings. And at one point you were Risk Source Clark Theders. And then you went to even that was a
big change,
major emotional change, right? All of these adjustments. So, and you and I both know that some organizations can do it, some don't, and they either get passed up or they just sell and exit.
Yeah.
Right? Or they hand it at some point, change exists. There's a wake-up call that happens that says, you know what, maybe we're not the people to create the change. We want to enable and support the change.
Yeah.
But we probably need to bring in some outside non-family professional leadership.
Absolutely. And I know you've seen that a lot because I think, especially in a family business, but really it could be any generational transition. Mm-hmm. The honesty of knowing what you need when you need it, I think, is really important. And when family, I'm a big believer that family should always be first. Transition and family is like most ideal. I'd love to see 6, 7, 8 generations of family. I think that's the way it should be. Not everybody's cut the same cloth. Mm-hmm. And I've seen, as I'm sure you've seen, a lot of people put into roles because of the family that they're not ready for. They don't love. They're there just because the family needs them to be there. Mm-hmm. And I think that can be a real a big disservice to not only the current generation, but the generations before. But what I do always say is like, okay, that next generation, are they just not ready, or they do not want it at all? If they don't want it at all, that's not good. But some just aren't ready. And so what are those, how can you bring in that next layer, that in-betweener for the 3, 4, 5, 10 years to prep them, to mentor them, to get them set? And I've seen so many companies do that really, really, really well, and I've seen some not. We've got a client right now it's really struggling. The kids one child's about to retire. Dad still hasn't left the business. They haven't quite figured out how to make that.
Did you just say
work.
one child's about to retire, but the dad hasn't left the business?
The dad hasn't even left the business yet.
Wow.
I mean, the kids are 70.
Yeah.
Dad's 90. Still.
Yeah.
And it's the identity. And I also feel like, and I don't want to dissuade because he's a remarkable person. But,
Sure.
But his identity has been the business.
Yeah.
And he's never given the right coaching or understanding that you can still be part of the family business.
Yeah.
But eventually, I mean, you're 90. Like, something's
Right.
coming.
How many decisions do you really want to make today?
Yeah.
So when you talked about the next gen being ready, there's so many things to unpack there, because there's a possibility where there is just a pure, straight up lack of skill. There's a lack of interest, but a feeling of obligation, which we've told so many of our mutual friends. I've even challenged it myself. I don't know if you ever have at times, but it's like, do I want to be here? The answer is absolutely. But you never want to get to a place where you feel like it's out of obligation. Right? Because of all of the turmoil personally and interfamily it can create. But there are family businesses I've met 50 and 60-year-olds who still wish they were never in the role they were in, but they did it because an out of obligation. And that's difficult and painful. And, do you feel like you never actually accomplished your goals?
Right.
So there's a readiness factor, which I want to break down. There's a just pure straight up lack of skill, where the readiness may not even get you to a place where you can be prepared if you have a lack of skill. There's an obligation component. And then there's the preservation side of things too. And you can preserve the family business and actually perpetuate the legacy by releasing and bringing in some outside leadership. So I feel like your team, you worked so hard as a family business to prepare your team for executive leadership. All of the resources you didn't only provide to your clients and whoever wanted to participate, but you provided so many experiences and opportunities for your team to continue to grow. So the investment of capital into your people was the strategy you took.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, and I think if you've got the right people, you can't overspend, and you can't develop good leaders. The disservice is not giving them the reins to be able to execute on that. And that's something like it's really truly empowering the workforce is the true answer to develop good people.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I've always kind of I don't want to say prided, but maybe prided myself on a little bit is to not meddle. My dad said that to me really early on. I'm going to really try not to meddle, because that second guessing can be really detrimental, and to the other teammates, it gets very confusing really fast. And so to me, it was always like, how do you have to have a regular set communication strategy and time with leadership to be able to have frank discussions that you could be on. So my dad and I, as we've talked about through the years, we had over 1,200 Wednesday breakfasts. I mean, every Wednesday, 6:15, we had breakfast. Why? Because nobody's busy at 6:15 a.m. Like you can't. There's no excuse. And so that time was a time for him to coach me to be vulnerable, for him to be a coach. And then as the years transitioned, it was me being able to, share my opinion more and him to be a listener, and we never felt like we weren't on the same page when we left that. You know, I think that it's interesting. Now in the evolution, my dad retired last year. Which is awesome.
Congratulations.
And it's what you hope for him, because I didn't know if he would ever retire.
Sure.
But he can do things now that's outside work, and but now it's like we realize that for 26 years, our relationships had this element of work, and so now it's the development of what's it like to be father-son without a business, and so I think there's I think that human aspect of the people we work with, and then you compound that with potentially family in business, and it's interesting.
There is a synergy. There's a group of family business leaders that Jonathan and I spend a lot of time with. I kind of say they're like our surrogate brothers and sisters, right? There's things that and you've walked alongside of me that I don't have a brother. So I need to bring this advice. But that family circle are, for the most part, our parents wanted their successors to be successful.
Yes.
That's how we all met, through the Gehring Center.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I didn't pay for the Gehring Center back in 2004, 5, 6, 7, all the way through today. My dad did.
Yeah.
Right? So there was a natural values that aligned all of us, that we had adults and parents who wanted our family to be successful. In our case, we went to the Gehring Center not because we had to. We have friends who have been thrusted into emergency situations with cancer and with death and with horrible catastrophe that happened in their family. We didn't even know if we wanted to be a family business. Like, I entered as just an employee to see, like, does this thing even mean anything to you? And would you get excited about to take to next generation? So we're third generation. I'm third generation CEO, second generation family, because my dad purchased the company from the original founders. And whereas, we were working last year, we worked with a client in Italy that's a 16th generation family business. The intentionality of all of it, like a 16th generation family business, has a set of rules and a book of expectations and a book of things that we are going to do for the next generation and things that we're going to do for the business to be successful. Because if we don't take proactive measures, it won't go anywhere.
Absolutely.
Right? So we come from a set of values, and you mentioned something just a second ago about a relationship with your father where business isn't a part of the conversation.
Right.
My dad told me as we were going through this journey, and I'm sure somebody told him this phrase that he then utilized, is, I want and he even said to me, but don't just say yes because you're a Sipple. I want my relationship with you as a father to be more important than my relationship to you as a CEO. And I can tell you countless relationships of mine, friends of mine, who wish they had a relationship with their parents that didn't have work interjected into the Thanksgiving dinner, or hanging out at a baseball game, or hanging out at a youth soccer game. And the same thing with siblings. Like, some don't know a life without business being a part of the sibling rivalry. Yeah. Right. And they don't even know enough to know what they didn't have. But at some point, there's an age where you're like, I wish I could do this with my parents and not have work be a part of the conversation. Yeah. And I have some of that. It's still hard, though.
It is.
Right? It's hard. And I shared recently with a friend of mine, I'd rather all of us be able to have a conversation if your parents, Lord willing, are still here. And if they aren't, how much you would linger to have this conversation. Like, I just want to have a discussion with my father or my mother or my sister that doesn't have first, like father first, mother first. And think about it even with our children. we want to have a relationship with our children in a way that it's not about work and it's not about what they're doing. And if it is, it's because it's fatherly advice. It's motherly advice with our kids, not it's my business and you know, da, 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 da. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, you know, and I guess it's, you know, being the one, you know, I was part of the family business. Now I've transitioned to the business family, and I look at my kids in this like really cool lens, because, you know, I can help coach them toward their life dreams and what makes them happy. And I remember it was a referral from you, Lily in particular. She went to the School for Creative and Performing Arts. She was a creative writing major, and she went to American University. And she, you know, she was all of a sudden she was like, you know, what do I want to be? Like a journalist? Do I want to be a history teacher? Do I want to do this? Like, what am I going to be? And history was always her passion. And you had referred over to somebody that did some coaching of young people. And she woke up after 2 sessions. She said, I want to be in museums. Like, it was like a light bulb of dream. Like and you realize all of her youth, you knew, like, yes, I see this, you know? And it's like, okay, how do we pour into that? You know, one of the negatives I've learned about museums is the fact that you never age out of museums. So you could be 95 years old and still work in a museum. So it's a tough job, in particular for young people, to get into. You got to do your, you know, wait your turn. But I think whenever you marry passion with what you love and what you do, that's where we need to be heading. And then to kind of tie it back to the family, I think really having a thoughtful for parents, well, Gen 1, say, or whatever the current generation is, to really say, is this a fit for them? Like, be real. Don't force it. But to really, and give them the tools to realize that, and the bandwidth to realize that.
And don't get offended if the answer is actually no. So don't think I'm going to go ask everybody this conversation. Like, you got to, if you've never had this conversation, you may have to work up and build up some trust to have the dialogue. But remove your expectation. Let it be their choice, because they need to see themselves. Now, the other fear is if they say, no, but I don't have any other skills because I've always worked here and I don't really, you know, we all know organizations where family members are going to be what perpetuates the next generation because they're ready for it. They're hungry for it. It may look different, but they desire and see a future of themselves in the organization. There are some who still to this day don't really even know what their role is.
Yeah.
Because the organization has propped itself up around that individual to provide the skills that they don't have. When I hear your story and I know what all you've done the last 20 years, and I know it's beyond, but in our friendship, so many organizations do not invest in the family or their people. Absolutely. And they wonder how they get there.
Right.
Right. And it's like, I was recently talking to a family business, very successful family business. And the conversation that I had with one of the siblings, that's one of the owners, was our next generation isn't ready because we weren't even ready. So our parents, the grandparents, never prepared us. We had to go figure it out on our own. And then some of us sought development and some of us meandered.
Yeah.
Now, the same thing's happening with the third or fourth generation because we modeled the behavior that we learned, and they're not ready either. And we're surprised by it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And we've put people in the roles and functions have failed. Well, they never had the skill in the first place. Right?
Yeah, and really, how do you become the cycle breaker to that? Because, you know, in many, many facets of life, you know, things tend to repeat itself, you know? And so for that generation to take, you know what, I wasn't really set up for success, but I've got to change that now. Yeah. Like, okay, I can put that aside and we can unpack that someday. Yeah. But right now, we got to change this for the future. Yeah. And I think that there's, you know, it's not for every business because, you know, it's of a certain size, so unfortunately it just doesn't fit for a lot of people. But as I'm sure you've seen, is the advent of the family office, and the ability for some of these families that have created more than your average significant wealth to create that family office structure. And why do people do that? And why would that be? And some of that too is it allows the family business to succeed.
Correct.
Oftentimes with very little family leadership outside of board representation
in that organization.
Because they realize that at each individual, it doesn't have the same passions and understanding of that family business. So how do we create some structure around the family wealth? How do we create this that allows investments in other areas? How it allows philanthropic endeavors? How it fills, because that is a protection of the family itself. Is really harnessing the power of the family and the uniquenesses of the family.
Yeah, and it honors the family because there's 100%. Something. So what we're referencing, like if you have an organization where the family, the only thing they're focused on is one entity, and then a family office gets created, you actually can all of a sudden learn about people. Like as an organization, we wish we were more philanthropic. Well, we have this one child, sibling, spouse in the business who is so philanthropic. Why don't we let her or him drive our philanthropic strategy as a family and let that person be the director of philanthropy under our family office to help us perpetuate impact? We are working with family offices. You have individuals in family offices who are dedicated to provide financial support and education to family. Because some families, the generations don't know as much about money because it was never a problem, or it was always such a problem they didn't want to touch it. You have both extremes. You also have individuals who may say, you know what? Getting out of business A, I've never been the best head of sales anyway for business A, but I would love to do this. And then let's go look for business B. So I say 17 years ago, PE was buying up all the families that didn't have an exit strategy. Yeah. And there's probably a large percentage of them that the best thing the family could have done was sell the family business. Yeah. Right. And hopefully the outcomes of some of that is everybody is a little bit healthier because of the drama and challenges that existed. And there was no exit strategy. Whose problem is that? That's the current leadership generation of not having a plan. What we've also seen is the rise of family offices, of families who are like, you know what we do here is really powerful. And what we do here with all of our resources can be even more powerful. So what if we hired non-family leadership to go into business A, and then let's go actually look for business B that might even be a beautiful integration to business A. And then let's look for business C and D that could also possibly work and be other partners. And almost like the low-hanging fruit is, oh yeah, we work with that type of business all the time. Why don't we go acquire one? And now you're spreading out risk. Yep. You're creating value that looks different than an exit, and you're building into next generation. Because so many family businesses, I think they exist not just for the family, but to also employ people and provide culture. So think of it like an umbrella. We're going to build, we love building into people. We love the fact that we're such a significant part of this community. What if we could 4 times X? Right. Because we don't really need to sell the business. Let's perpetuate the values and impact of our family and what we believe in. And let's bring the goodness of who we are into the world in an amplified way. So we could do that instead of sell the company. Or we could do that instead of, other transition and exit strategies. So there's been a rise to family offices, and some are just starting, right? Yeah. What have you heard of some of the driving motivators behind starting family offices?
Well, I think, centralized wealth management, I think, is one. I think it is bringing people together to make sure there's some kind of structure around.
And centralizing wealth management for all of the generations?
For the generations, yeah. Okay. Yeah, to have some cohesion around that. I think there's some elements of privacy and some control. You can kind of build in a little bit of protectionism around the family. Business opportunities, how do you take dividends and, profits of the business that, distributions are one thing, but how do you create the next business or invest, as you said, in business B, C, D, and E that can help create that, or create an avenue for a family member that doesn't have the passion for the original family business, but another one. So I think there's a lot of reasons why a family office works in a lot of ways, and the diversification is probably one of the biggest, because we, no matter how big a business is, we can be out-innovated. We can have disruptions that cause issues. So I think anytime we can think a little bit, broader, it's. I think that was one additional reason why it was real important for us. And I know it's not a family office situation, but for our business, is we were in property casualty insurance, which was great. We were really good at what we do, and and it was one aspect in one geography with one primary area, and to know on the One Digital front where you have different elements of the business, employee benefits and retirement services and 401k and so on and so forth, that it just gave us a lot more breadth that, we're, each one of those are going to cycle through life. Some are going to be up, some are going to be down, but the diversification of it should allow the company to continue and invest in itself when it needs to. And so I think a family office is very similar. You can bring in some complementary investments and some disparate ones that can bring some stability to the family.
Okay, so you may be thinking, how do I do this? How do I lead unconventionally? How do I lead my team in a way that's unconventional? How do I build a strategy that's unconventional to elevate my organization and those around me? I want to encourage you to reach out through the link in the description and post that question. I want to learn how to lead more unconventionally. I want to help my team think unconventionally, and let's start the conversation. So thank you for joining us, and let's get back to the episode. And you mentioned the reference to even the privacy component is also they can bring in accounting services. They can bring in financial wealth management. They can bring in,
Absolutely.
We've seen many of them bring in education in certain topics, or creating what is our family charter? What are the values that we want our resources to go to? What do we believe as a family? And also providing everyone a voice.
Absolutely.
Right? Because some people may feel like their voice hasn't been heard and they don't really have a place for it.
Absolutely.
When you have a family office, a great family office listens to everyone's voice and helps them identify how to leverage that voice and that perspective to perpetuate the values of the family.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'm never really quite, this is just where my brain goes sometimes. I think there's also an element of protection for the original family business, that you do create. Those businesses that have a family office have significant wealth accumulated in it. You're not going to create a family office for a failing business, like it's and when you build a certain, and this isn't all, but lifestyle based upon that business, you have to perpetuate that. And when you have shareholders that invested blood, sweat, and tears in growing a business, and then you have shareholders that don't, that are just not. It's not a dig on that generation. It's just you didn't go through the beginning parts of it. There can be an element of, big payday, let's sell the business, do this. And so I think a family office also gives a little bit of governance structure around protecting that from happening, but also diversifying the way the income flows to those shareholders, that you don't have to sell the business for the big opportunity, that there's a little bit more in. So I think it's a great tool potentially solves a lot of problems.
Yeah. So many of what I'll call them mentors, like individuals who you and I have heard their stories for years. Again, because of this little bit of just this culture alignment, values alignment of we all met through Gehring Center work that helps family businesses perpetuate the next generations,
Yeah.
right? To build vibrancy of private and family business in our community. So we've heard mentors speak to us. And many of those mentors, if you think about it over the years, they've put in professional leadership teams.
Yeah.
So they've navigated family dynamic and they've put in professional leadership teams. Let's talk a little bit about that. You and I work with a lot of mutual clients who have incredible professional executives running these organizations where they evaluated highest and best use.
Yeah.
Let's hire, I know this may be a profound statement for some, or some of you may hear this and go, gosh, I wish we would do that. Let's hire the best people for the roles that we need in our businesses, right?
Yep.
Shouldn't be a profound statement, but it is for some. And someone listening to this may even say, I'm in a role and I know there's got to be somebody better to do this function than me, but this is the seat I'm in. We've worked with a lot of organizations that have said, you know what, we are going to go hire a true professional executives CFO. Mm-hmm. We're going to go bring in a head of marketing who can help us understand go-to-market strategy, market penetration, growth, and absorption. Let's talk a little bit about that example. I think you and I have also worked with GMs and presidents that are non-family. You referenced it earlier of bringing in like a generation gap leader.
Yeah.
Sometimes, Jonathan, that gap leader is brought in to specifically help develop the next generation.
100%.
Because the current generation doesn't know how.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not a knock on anyone, because the reality is you probably don't know how because you were never taught how.
No.
Right.
No, and I think there's also another aspect too, and I coach people, anybody in a new senior leadership role that comes into a business that they are kind of walking into, is to identify what the untouchables are, because every business has them. And I've seen so many CFOs and presidents come and go, some really quick, and it sometimes takes 3 or 4 to figure out, and then it'll sit for 10 years. But transition can be tough, and most of it is there's low hanging fruit in every business that isn't ready for change. So it's just not there. And so when I really push people when they come in, I'm like, find and identify what the untouchable is, and don't touch that. That's not your first action,
right? That's
Because
going to take 4 years of building trust.
You're going to burn
before
somebody's bridge, and you'll get there because it needs to happen. And I'll use an example. I mean, we had a client who still used they're a $350 million company, and they were a DOS-based computer system. I mean, F1, F2, monochromatic computer screens. I mean, just
really,
orange or green, pick your color. But I mean, how's this even happen? And so everybody's first thing was, we got to change IT, but the ownership just wasn't ready, and since they did get there, so that's the positive part. But it burned through a lot of issues and challenges at the beginning, because that was like the low hanging fruit that the ownership.
It looked like the most obvious.
They liked their green bar paper. Hey. No harm, no foul. They created a successful business. So
that's how we've always worked.
Let's pick something else. So, but yeah, I think that's a big part. And I really, the other part that I think in, Talent Magnet Institute was a huge part of that for me, and the development of your own self as like a senior leader, but also your people, is how do you coach and mentor people to self-understand who they are, how they communicate with people, even the 360 that I did with you guys was, I've been doing my business for 20 years at that point. It was probably 7, 8 years ago. I learned so much about myself. Yeah. And actually, I think the team and the vendors and the people that participate in that I learned a lot about them and the way that is. And so I think there's an understanding of vulnerability. Like, you have to be able to have some thick skin to hear what you need to hear. But also, you need to, at any stage of your career, you should be investing in yourself and your people to learn how it can work better. And I reflect on my big book that I have. And
from your 360,
from my 360 often, because it's there's things that you can evolve and change on that. And And,
Yeah, but you have to be. We were in a recent conversation with Tara Halpin, our dear family business sister.
Yes.
And Tara, even we talked about that. Like there is a dynamic of you're going to open up this door. The reason why we believe 360s have been used as weapons historically is when they opened up the door, they just left it open.
Yeah.
Right. Versus a plan and an awareness of we're going to hear things. You got to get the team ready. We're going to hear things we may not like.
Right.
We're also going to hear things we're surprised positively about. The heart of it is that we're answering these questions not to attack someone, but to really build in and invest in, like, let's just acknowledge it and accept where we are.
Yeah.
Here's where we are. Tara, myself, probably yourself and others, as we do those cultural audits inside our own organizations, like those can be really disrupting and they can knock you off your feet. But it is the lived experiences. So
absolutely.
360 feedback, organizational assessment feedback, people aren't sharing to attack you. They're sharing about their lived experiences with you. And then we take that and hopefully build a culture and an attitude of like, I'm going to accept what it is. I may not like it all. You also may not like everything about everyone else either.
Yeah.
Right? But let's work on it. Let's work towards it. It could take years. It could take months. It could take just a week. There could be something you're doing you don't even realize you're doing that if I just stop that, I'd build more trust.
Right. And I think that's even just self-awareness sometimes can be a trigger for people because, I think back we were doing a risk assessment for a company down in Northern Kentucky that had not stellar workers' compensation experience. So they had some issues and challenges, and we were going through a workers' comp assessment and had a group of people, and it was 1 to 5, 5 being like exceptional, everybody's aware, everybody's aligned, to non-existent. And it was the first perfect score I had ever had on an assessment in my life. Every single person put 5s, straight down. But it's not true. Because their experience it doesn't show that. Yeah. And so I started understanding, like, is this team, like 6 people, all believe that they're perfect? And so I started asking questions, and it said, and one person gave me the answer, which was the CEO is so hard and so direct and so angry if anything is less than perfect. And so they're willing to put a vulnerable statement out there. Less than perfect wasn't good enough. They were scared. They were fearful. They didn't have a psychologically, what we call today, a psychologically safe environment to be able to tell the truth. And so I sat down with the CEO and I said, people are scared of you. What? People are scared to tell the truth because you yell at them, you get angry at them, you criticize them in public, you do this. I didn't know I was doing that. It was this like weird self-awareness. Now, where did it go tomorrow? I don't know. It could, I don't know what it's really worked to work there day in and day out. So, but he had a real moment of, I don't want that. And so, but nobody ever told him.
Right.
And so I think these kind of coaching and the ability to share and the ability to be vulnerable, the ability to listen, to open up a culture that it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah.
We John Pico, the author or speaker, one of the things he talks about is recover with style. And I'm like, sometimes we let people down, sometimes we make mistakes, but it's actually the true mistake is not learning from it. And if you recover with style, if you can actually reach a new high than if you had done it right the first time.
Yeah.
So just how do we create that environment?
Yeah. The other part you said that most people don't give the feedback, don't tell. I'd also say that most leaders don't ask, right? So if you think, oh yeah, we've never done a 360 with our leadership team, you've never even asked.
Yep.
So imagine what you're missing out on. And I know it's vulnerability, and I know that not everybody, quote unquote, wants to, but if you could like lean in and trust us that, and have a good mentor and guide around you to navigate the process, but lean in and trust us that it's an amazing gift to be more vulnerable, to ask the questions, to absorb the feedback and not negatively respond, but look at it as an opportunity. And this is where, again, culturally, organizations lift far beyond 300, 400, 500 times X just because they have that environment where the vulnerability is open and the culture allows me to share of opportunities that I see that
absolutely
aren't the right thing, right? Think of the impact financially, culturally, to the customers, to products of a company that's afraid to say we're less than perfect here. We actually have a lot of mistakes. You know that their workers' comps are off the charts negative.
Right.
So how are you rating that it's not?
Right.
Because the facts are the facts.
Yeah.
Right. And what a cloud to have under your organization.
Oh.
Right. So being vulnerable, being open to the feedback, not exploding on the feedback, but listening and absorbing the feedback. And then let's just make some incremental change, right? Similar to a non-family business leader. I think the worst thing a family business can tell a non-family executive is monumental or disruptive change, because you really don't you might mean that in your definition, but when you get a business leader from outside that's managed complete and utter turnarounds, transitions, workouts, what you just said and what they heard, two totally different things. So the fast nature, some of them you and I have even been involved with, where a president or a CFO was brought in and they moved and we're thinking, oh, are you sure they really wanted that?
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, 5 months later, the person's no longer there. Sometimes I'm like, I'm sure glad we didn't place them.
Yeah.
But the dynamic is true. Like even the definition of, monumental change, disruption, we want to grow, we want to go to the next level.
Yeah.
Take the time to say, what does that mean to you? And let's define it. Let's look, what are your goals and hopes that you're at 3 months, 3 years? What are you trying to get to? How can I help you get there? The most patient executives make great non-family executive partners to run a business, right? I mean, you and I know a couple of fabulous heads of HR and CFOs that, quite honestly, I think they have all the answers.
Yeah.
I actually do. But they're so patient and kind with their words, and they're willing to take the time to work towards a change versus force a change. Right.
And the balance of knowing when to do that or not.
When to do that.
And I think one thing I'm so grateful for you over the last 20 years, and we have the mutual benefit of our roundtable, that from starting in the Gehring Center and now kind of our own, is to create that network of people. Because you deal with all this stuff, you have the challenges, but how do you create the environment where you can be vulnerable with others that get it and understand it? Having worked with 1,000 businesses over my career, whether you're selling or manufacturing a widget or you're it doesn't matter. We all have the same components of business. I mean, it's people, process. And I'm always amazed. It doesn't matter how big you are or how small you are. We all have the same challenges in business. And so, how do you create that kind of network? So I do want to say thank you for being that network for me, because it's been, when I think of where we all started, which we, most of us were in the up and coming, we think we are going to be the next generation.
Yeah,
we all weren't sure.
Many of us didn't even have leadership titles.
And then you see now half of our original group have sold and retired, and we're still grinding.
Yeah, we're still at it.
But it's without that network, I couldn't have got through a lot of things because I didn't have anybody to talk to.
Yeah, and even the individuals in that group that have retired are still like within seconds responsive. Like this is a group that cares for one another, not just for their business. Finding people, finding your 3 a.m. friends, as we like to call it, finding your crew, your tribe that supports you, not just for where you are, but also people who can give you examples of where you want to go, right? And like, I admire what some of our friends have done and what their families have accomplished, even though they no longer own their business, but the impact they're making. And families who do still own the business and are growing leaps and bounds, maybe more today than they were even 5 years ago. and still at it is also a really positive thing because we're still trying to create transformational change. But having the ability to have a crew that you can send out a quick text on a Saturday afternoon and ask a question, and by 2 hours later you got 3 responses, and then next thing you know it's like, oh, let's go grab dinner together. It's been a while.
Absolutely.
Or vacation together, or do something fun that's different, and let's how are the kids? What's going on? If you're in a world of isolation where that doesn't exist, there are so many communities to get plugged into. So if you're in a world of isolation and don't know how to find the right tribe to support where you are and where you want to go, just reach out. There's tons of resources that we both know to help you surround yourself with people who won't judge you. That's the other thing I find, like, leading with your leadership team, there's still a level of isolation because there's a level of knowledge everyone thinks we're supposed to have.
Yeah.
And we don't all have all the answers. So being able to say, hey guys, here's what I'm up against. This is what I'm trying to navigate. Like example, the last 5 years, we still own businesses through a global pandemic that, to be frank, I know there's been downturns in economy and I know there's been difficulties, but this was unlike anything else. So we couldn't go to our parents and ask for advice about specifically what was happening. We could ask for, prayer and support. But like we were grinding together, right? And I remember, I think we were actually in a round table together when the world was shutting down.
Yeah.
Like that morning.
That morning. Yeah. We talked about
and then it was like, so I think by the very next afternoon, we were on a Zoom call together as a group to be like, what are you all hearing? What is actually happening? And we all came out the other side, right?
Yeah.
It's impressive.
It is.
But it's through community
that
gets you through things. And we've been fortunate enough to be in a community where we love hanging out and we love the friendships and we love the familial support. And also you've dealt with things that I've gone through that I don't have an answer for this. I don't know how to respond. And you've been like, hey, buck up, Buttercup. You need to make this decision and make this call. And you've also just been a listening ear through like really horrible family things that we've gone through the last couple of years where I'm just a mess. And you may not have quote unquote advice. You've been the listening ear to listen and to be there as a resource. So I thank you for that.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, life as a teammate, life as a friend, life as a coworker, life as whatever, it doesn't start and end when you walk in the threshold of a door of an office.
Right. Amen.
And when you leave, we're human, and work certainly enables, and if work is unhealthy, it can cascade to an unhealthy after work life too, because you take all that negative energy and you bring it home with you.
That's a great point.
But it also goes the other way. You got a lot of heavy things that happen in life that are outside the work, and you bring that.
And they don't
into
compartmentalize because you are who you are as a human. So you accept both sides of that. I think finding a group where you can also enjoy, like just in, we go on annual retreats together, right? Every October. And we're going to be heading to one, and like, we'll hike, we'll enjoy, we're going to a Cliff's Edge retreat center and we'll do some hiking and we'll enjoy some adult beverages and we'll have some great food. And we'll also have a lot of laughter. We'll probably break out in karaoke at some point. And just because we have a lot of audiophiles in our group who love music and are some of the best DJs. Alan's the best DJ that I've ever met.
He is.
But like that's we'll also connect on personal level that we haven't caught up on in a while too. Yeah. Right. There's something unique about that experience that I hope everyone finds, and are here to support people finding those groups. I'm going out to Montana at the end of October, or went out to Montana at the end of October, depending on when you're listening to this episode. And, and did that 2 years ago to Wyoming, and I'm going out to Montana, and I have different things I'm personally carrying with me out to Montana that I did Wyoming. They're different.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about them. And I was with a gentleman just recently who's also going, and he was like, yeah, I've got some things. I just need the reflection time. I need to maybe bounce some ideas at a different venue instead of at a boardroom at a bonfire, and like see what people are thinking and just clear my head and get ready for, family and work in a different way.
Yeah.
Right. Some would say that sounds like a terrible experience. Others would say I'd rather be on a golf trip to Scotland or, be watching the Ryder Cup and be there in person. So finding that space is super important. And that goes to the identity piece, right? Because there's I think there's some generational adjustment that there are certain generations who their entire identity is the workflow.
Yeah.
And that's it. And everyone around them, personally and professionally, they don't really have a community. All they know is this door they do walk into. And that's all they know. And yet their family around them and leaders around them are like, yeah, there's this disconnect, right? Where we've worked really hard because we've been told. I mean, I know I was told from my father not to operate that way. Find people that you enjoy life with, that you can get mentored by, that you can mentor, that you can be supportive of, and they can support you. It's kind of like work is only a part of it, right? Don't live your life just for work. I mean, my grandfather saved, I don't know if he ever didn't work, because when he wasn't at work, he was working. When he left his trucking job, he was rebuilding houses and buying junk and selling junk for more than he bought it for and flipping this and supporting that person. By the time he got to an age that he had enough to do, my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, right? So like the piano he wanted to buy her, he didn't buy her until after she had Alzheimer's. The trips he wanted to go on to take her to Hawaii, he didn't get to take her. He had to go without her. Like, that's not a way. So we've been coached not to operate that way. And I think we would coach our youth to do the same, and leaders who are around us, like, enjoy life, man. Enjoy it. Have a great time. My financial advisor tells me often, like, is that going to be an amazing memory for you to have with Amber, with my wife, or with your children? Yeah, it'd be really incredible. We've never done anything like that. Oh, I think you have your answer.
Yeah.
Like, go do that.
Go do it.
So thank you, Howard, for encouraging me to do things. Yeah. And we got that one of our roundtables. So you and I were hiking in Georgia. What was the city of the Macklemore? Where's Macklemore at?
It's Rising Fawn.
Rising
Georgia.
Fawn. So we were in Rising Fawn. We were hiking. Surprise. We were hiking.
Yeah.
And Roger told me, you've never been to Europe and you're questioning taking Amber to Europe for your 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
When we get back, call your travel agent
and get it done
and book that daggone trip. And guess what?
Yeah.
We booked that daggone trip and went last year. So like having friends who are like, what do you think? Why are you questioning?
And was it worth it?
It was the most amazing trip ever. Yeah. Right. But this came up in a free flowing hike about like, what are we all dealing with over the next year? And I was like, I'm experiencing my 20th anniversary. I'm thinking about this, but I know Amber probably won't want us to spend that money to do that. Cause it's a big trip. And it was like, dude, how hard do you work? Really, really hard.
Absolutely.
You need to take that trip. So anyway, I hope that can be some lessons learned to encourage our listener to say, you know what? I'm going to take that trip. I'm going to do that thing. I'm going to be there for this. I'm going to actually take time off to go say yes to something else, because it's not all about work. And then when you come back to work, you're even more energized. You've got more experience. Yeah. You have more freshness and knowledge, because you gave yourself the space. I was just right before we walked in, I was texting with a CEO friend of mine, and she just landed in Boston, which is one of her favorite cities, and she loves oysters. And she was like, I gotta go enjoy some oysters. And she just yesterday hosted one of the most amazing, phenomenal events I've participated in the last 12 months. And she got the heck out of Dodge, as they say, and headed up to Boston after, and well-deserved. It was an amazing experience, and she needs a break, right? Yeah. So she attached it to the annual experience, and that's what we're talking about. Like, make sure you still enjoy life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a great lesson, and wherever you are, and it's probably my biggest struggle. So, but I try to push myself very hard in this area, is to be as present as possible. When you, like, just the past week, I had a trip that was out in England, and we took my good friend Joe planned a sunrise at Stonehenge and got an inner circle tour, which is like pretty rare. Only
Wow. Yeah.
20, 30 people a day or so instead of 6,000 that go there. Can you go inside the stones? And so it's 4:30 pickup, 2-hour drive. Car on the way to us gets in an accident. Can't make it. We can't get a hold of the driver. We don't know what. At this point, we didn't know what was happening. The owner of the tour company said, "I've never had this happen in 20 years. I feel terrible. I can be there if you can get there." Well, how do you get 2 hours away except by Uber? So there was part of me that said 4:30 in the morning, my bed sounds a little bit better than going to Stonehenge, to be honest with you. Like, at this point, it seems hard. But we got an Uber. We drove. The owner of the tour company met us there. He gave us the most amazing tour I've ever been on. It was extremely spiritual moment of looking out at what was so old. I mean, like thousands and thousands of years created by people that you're like, why and how did they even do this? And the way that it's just expansive farmland. And I sat there, and it was like 2 hours earlier, I was like, why am I doing this? And then I'm there, and I'm like, I'm so glad I did this. And I'm here with some of the most special people in my life, and we're like, it was just awesome. And so sometimes it's like when your internal person says, resist this, maybe open it up a little bit and say, should I?
Yeah.
Do I need to experience it? And then when you're there, just live it, because there's everything around you is there for you to experience and to take from and to then share with others. It's, so really trying to push myself to be more present these days.
Yeah.
Because my brain always goes to what's next. It's like, what's the next thing on my calendar? What's the next thing I got to do here?
I don't know about your experience, but like growing up, and I know, Dad, you'll be listening to this episode most likely, and hopefully Mom too. But Dad worked all the time, right? And he did it because of us. I mean, that was, I really think, his motivator. There's life decisions he made of doing option A or option B, participating in option A or option B that was right for the family at the time. There was also a season where you grind because it's harvest season. I got to do this. Most of their vacations were with us kids. Like, when they took vacation, they went with us kids. They did have a season where they did lots of out of town trips, but most of them were with us kids, and we had a great time. I mean, it was a great experience. I love every single memory. I can think of all of them. I love that our phones and our apps remind us of all these memories of old pictures from 34 years ago. But it's awesome to see my parents vacationing now. It's great to hear they just booked their next cruise, that they just, that they're going to go up 3 days early to a family reunion, that they're doing these things. And I am so encouraged by it still as their child that I'm trying to do the same. I know our kids need to see that their mom and dad love each other. And I know that. I've been taught that. And it's great to go do experiences. It's also awesome to do them with them. So while we're on a retreat, Amber's taking Jacob up to IU for a school tour, a college tour, a college visit. And they're going to have a great time. Yeah. Right? But doing these, for some it may not feel like spontaneous, but doing things that are outside talks so much to what we just referenced the last hour about family business. We talked about identity. We talked about purpose. We talked about family and obligation versus doing it because you love it. Right? I love the work I do. I don't feel obligated to do the work I do. I won't say that there weren't seasons where I felt some family obligation, because we do. We're family, right? But I love the fact that I went down this path, and I'm thankful for it. I didn't feel pressured into it. If at any point, my dad and I kind of had like this secret phrase, like if at any point you feel like we don't have a father-son relationship, verbalize it.
Right.
Say it, because that's not what I want. You're a son first, you're a business partner second, is what he would tell to me often. You're my son first, you're my business partner second, and the son comes first.
Yeah.
Right. And so the encouragement of that spontaneity, and, is also a leadership lesson, right? Our team needs to see us doing great things, and we need to give them space to take breaks too. Because I can tell you, at
Absolutely.
Centennial and Talent Magnet Institute, our team grinds so hard to do what we do every day that we have to I'm going to give you space, and I'm not going to reach out to you.
Yeah.
And you don't need to reach out to me either. You had an amazing week. Go enjoy early, go enjoy your vacation. Don't check in.
Right.
And I'm not going to check in with you either.
Yeah.
And if you reach out to me and ask me what's going on, I might give you an answer just because I can tell you're curious, but don't expect me to reach out. And it's not because I don't love you and don't care for all the things. You need to go and do and enjoy your vacation.
Yeah. Go and do, and then have the team at home support you. So when you come home, you don't have 450 emails in your inbox and 700 voicemails.
Good luck with that.
I know. And you wonder why you left in the first place. So,
Well, Jonathan, one last question for you. So how do you define unconventional leadership?
I think unconventional leadership is about feeling your way through situations. It's about taking all the things that you've experienced, all the things that you've learned. It's about putting yourself in the shoes of the people that you're around, that you're influencing. I think it's about empathy. I think it's about understanding. We all are living in this world in our own unique little space. And, I have my perspective, and I interact with 48 people on my team that have their perspective. And so I think really coming and making sure that you're marrying what their situation is and where they are, and kind of leading toward a common goal together versus the kind of force. I think that's, to me, I think it's through teamwork and knowledge and communicating with each other.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, everyone, for joining this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. I do encourage you, if you're not a subscriber, to hit subscribe if you're listening to this episode. I encourage you to respond to some of the comments in the community section that you might see below. And I look forward to the next conversation. We hope to continue to bring value, inspiration, encouragement to help you unlock your potential and the potential of those around you. We'll see you in the next episode.